listeners, Advocacy Coordinator Tatum here to say thank you for starting your day with our peerless, trusted Progress Texas podcasts. This critical midterm year, you can invest in the largest digital network for Texas progressives by becoming a monthly member for our summer drive. If you haven't joined or increased your gift yet, you can join today at the link in the show notes, and we'll thank you with union-made merch to match your values, plus a shout out on the Daily Dispatch. Thanks in advance for funding the progressive Texas you want to live in today.
Ethan Skinner, I work in finance. I support Progress Texas because I'm a native Texan and I care about the future of this state. I was born and raised here, it's close to my heart, and I care about my fellow Texans and those that are native and those that move here, and I would like to ensure that our rights are protected.
It's Wednesday, July 22nd, 2026, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch, rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. Progress Texas amplifies progressive values, leaders, and actions through our no paywall podcasts and digital media. We reach millions of Texans monthly, and that's made possible by folks like you who invest in independent progressive media by Texans for Texans. Huge thanks to Ivan Friedman, Rebecca Williams, and Roxanne Boyd for their ongoing sustaining support. Much appreciated. The video is truly a sight to see. Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, as we've lately discussed, is not new to press conferences necessarily, but also doesn't spend near the amount of time in front of cameras as other big names in Republican politics do. And our illustrious AG was caught very much off guard yesterday as what he had planned as a manly photo op in Fort Worth with a phalanx of Texas sheriffs in their Stetsons turned into an opportunity for reporters to ask him just a couple of very basic questions about his recent news activity. Just 2 questions, and the whole thing crashed and burned. I've watched the whole thing a few times now, and it is something else. The lectern is decorated with a picture of James Talarico, who has clearly sent this entire bunch into an existential panic. First guy up to the mic is Tarrant County Sheriff Bill Wayborn, who has overseen a literal wave of deaths at the Tarrant County Jail and was a pioneer in local law enforcement collusion with ICE. Wayborn extols Paxton's virtues in supporting both his own overreach in Tarrant County as well as that of Donald Trump across the country. Next is retired Jackson County Sheriff and current Republican State Rep A.J. Louderback, who drags Joe Biden for a minute while singing the praises of Operation Lone Star and decrying the, quote, lawlessness of the left, unquote, before introducing Paxton, who takes the mic at about the 4-minute mark. Somewhat listlessly, I gotta say, Paxton fails to match the stronger voices of the prior speakers and expresses via a written statement read verbatim his belief that law enforcement officers should always have the backing of elected officials. Always, he says, before paradoxically condemning, quote, policies that put politics ahead of public safety, unquote. Paxton reads his prepared statement for a long time, working in a promise to bolster the qualified immunity policies that allow abusive cops in Texas to get away with their crimes. Paxton pivots then to trashing James Talarico, still from his written statement at about the 10-minute mark, and that goes on until about 14 minutes in, when questions are fielded from the group of reporters present and the wheels come flying off. First, Jack Fink, a senior political reporter for CBS News Texas, asks Paxton to respond to reports of his having amassed a considerable real estate empire and having allegedly skirted laws regarding that real estate. Paxton cuts Fink off mid-question, insisting that all questions be related to law enforcement. Paxton's handler, campaign spokesperson Madison Searcy, nervously calls on Gromer Jeffers of the Dallas Morning News to change the subject, which Jeffers does, with a question about why Paxton has been voting in Collin County after apparently having moved to Denton County. Searcy jumps in again to defend her boss, who by now is looking super uncomfortable, and insists that the assembly of county sheriffs present is a good reason for these reporters to limit their range of questioning for the sitting Attorney General of Texas and the Republican nominee for the U.S. Senate. Jack Fink does not comply. He insists that all questions are fair, reminding Paxton that he's just been dragging James Talarico on his record, and asks Paxton, quote, what is your main takeaway for voters, unquote, in this super tight race, to which Paxton pivots back to his preferred topic for a moment before Searcy interjects a third time and shuts the whole thing down, walking in front of the cameras saying, quote, we're gonna get out of here, unquote. Paxton unceremoniously bails with her while the group of sheriffs in their Stetsons awkwardly fidgets and exchanges quizzical glances. A third reporter, I'm pretty sure Brittany Costello from WFAA, catches Paxton as he's bolting for the door to compare James Talarico's recent focus on affordable child care to Paxton's alignment with county sheriffs. And what that should say to voters, Paxton's curt response is hard to make out, but suffice to say, this staged event did not produce the optics that Team Paxton had in mind, and certainly makes the prospect of a live debate between these two nominees a much more delicious prospect for Texas progressives. To review, Malcolm Ferguson at the New Republic notes that New York Times report finding that Ken Paxton now owns 15 properties across 6 states valued at roughly $9 million. Additions to his real estate portfolio that are especially noteworthy, considering his $153,000 annual state salary, and particularly amidst an apparent recent buying spree that has happened alongside Paxton's ongoing divorce. And there's that Texas Tribune and ProPublica investigation finding that Paxton cast ballots in 6 separate elections over 2 years using a Collin County address where he did not reside, a potential felony violating elections laws that are the cornerstone of Ken Paxton's own modus operandi. And, of course, there's also that overseas trip that Paxton took earlier this month with his alleged mistress, during which he spent the 4th of July on British soil. And those obviously and wildly exaggerated claims on the size of the crowd and an obviously modestly attended Paxton campaign event in McAllen. And let's not forget allegations of a botched quid pro quo with Texas Tech Regent and oil billionaire Cody Campbell, who had given Paxton's campaign nearly $250,000 that appears to have actually ended up ruining Tech's scheme to retain a quarterback who had been busted betting on his own former college football team. We've arrived at a point where dedicated Republican voters in Texas are being asked to ignore a lot. And in 104 days, we'll learn how many Texas Republicans simply ignore it all. Speaking of selective and willful ignorance, there's something to be said about our media landscape here as well. There's a broad disparity in how this pressure is being covered by various news outlets. The aforementioned WFAA, for example, left the ignominious end of the presser completely out of their report. The radio company Odyssey and their reporting spread across their entire network also left Paxton's very public collapse out of their story. And even the hard-hitting Texarkana Gazette dutifully parroted Paxton's smears of Talarico as an anti-law enforcement lawmaker, but made no mention of his sprint for the exit. Turns out it does matter where you get your news. And finally, let's address as we close this gaggle of 20 or so Texas county sheriffs, which also included Chambers County Sheriff Brian Hawthorne, who's also president of the Sheriff's Association of Texas, and Collin County Sheriff Jim Skinner, who could find himself directly involved should Paxton face voter fraud charges there. These public servants banding together to back a partisan political candidate draws into focus the central conflict that lies in the balancing of the dual roles of Texas county sheriffs, who themselves are elected from partisan ballots but are then entrusted to serve the entirety of their jurisdictions impartially. The very nature of this presser in Fort Worth highlights the tension between public service and partisan politics, within which the public's trust that law enforcement operates without political bias is at stake. These sheriffs, as individual citizens and voters, of course, have every right to express their personal political preferences, but a group endorsement of this kind tells the public that their power and authority as leaders of public safety agencies are specifically aligned with Ken Paxton and the Republican Party. Among Texans living in the counties these guys are sworn to protect who don't line up with this candidate, his party, their values, or the lack thereof, one might understand a creeping doubt about whether the law enforcement authorities presiding over the counties they call home can be counted on to exercise their public safety mandates neutrally and fairly. Houston listeners, the next episode of our In Progress Roundtable show will come to you on the radio on KPFT 90.1 FM at 6:30 p.m. tomorrow and every Thursday, and it runs a second time every Sunday morning 11 on KPFT FM HD2. And we're happy to announce that In Progress is soon to join the lineups of Empower House Radio 101.5 FM in San Antonio and KZSM Radio 104.1 FM in San Marcos. With your support, we hope to continue to expand our radio footprint across Texas this year. Hit the link in the show notes to make your tax-deductible donation to help us reach new audiences via Texas radio. This election year, you can support the real free press by investing in pro-democracy, pro-justice, progressive storytelling delivered by Texans for Texans. Join Progress Texas this summer ahead of the midterms and become a monthly donor today, or increase your giving during our summer sustaining donor drive. With your partnership, we can reach more independents, progressives, and young voters, all of whom must be mobilized to win elections this fall. We invite you to sign up or increase your support during our summer drive, and we'll thank you with Perks for Progress, your choice between our exclusive Resist coffee mug, a sweet Progress Texas summer koozie, and a progressive button pack. Plus, you'll get a shout out here on the Daily Dispatch like this one for our friend Brian Mars, who's been a sustaining member for several months and has seen fit to increase his monthly support. Brian, you're the best. Thanks so much for being on the team. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Wednesday, July 22nd, 2026. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. Learn more about what we do and how you can get involved at progresstexas.org. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. Have a terrific day. We'll catch you again right here tomorrow morning.